Greetings. Welcome back to another session. Dorsey's Resource. I want to welcome you. This topic is going to be open forum Q&A, basically free flow discussion. In case you're joining me, I normally give a disclaimer. It's been a minute since I've done a video, so this is kind of like a freestyle. I didn't really have a particular topic in mind. Some things I wanted to discuss. You guys have any questions, feel free to join in. First, this video is for informational, educational, entertainment purposes only. Please understand everyone's individual circumstance or situation may be different. It's up to every individual competent person to please do his own homework research into the matter being discussed. This information is not to be construed as legal advice. In any event, you need to seek a competent professional. It is encouraged you do so at one's own leisure. Dorsey's Resource is not liable or responsible for any misuse of this information. With that being said, all rights are reserved. I want to thank you. See, we got a couple people joined in the chat. Big shout out Money Boy in the building, fam. Money Boy in the building. What's up, family? We got also Andre Butler says, hey, bro, where you been? I'm still here. Thank you for asking. Thank you for joining. I've been trying to be quiet. If you watched my last video dealing with the, the reset situation in that private event that I attended some years back, I want to say I've given a lot of my personal opinions about it. I'm not trying not to say the person's name who was like at the forefront, but it appears as though his right-hand guy out west took over. I've decided not to come back. Some friend asked me. I'm on the fence about this because it's like I already did this paperwork years ago. I did the money for the seminars and stuff. So I just feel like it's too much vacillation back and forth. And when you feel like you're going back and forth too much, it's best to just fall back, step back. I'm praying this happens, but I'm going to give my way in, my opinion. It looks like somebody else jumped in real quick. Let me see who that was. Carnell Smith says, what's up, Dorsey? Appreciate it. What's up to you, fam? Thank you for joining. But to jump into things real quick, I don't want to be before you that long. I'm actually on a time limit. But in my opinion, with that private program that I was part of, they are intentionally withholding critical information. They do tell you from the redemption stuff there's not a silver bullet. However, I discovered along with some other people years ago, this information does go all the way high up to the elites. There is truth to this information, contrary to popular belief, despite what certain gatekeepers out there may tell you that this information is not real or it doesn't work. There is evidence, and because I was in the movement years ago, I have the experience where I've actually saw stuff go through. It's not too often, but in terms of discharge, I saw a discharge go through years ago for one of my former girlfriends. I actually helped her with some paperwork and was interested. I didn't follow the same stuff, but I made sure that this that I had, I showed her basically with the information. We did everything to the T. And that was like an older process, but from what I understand, I do know for sure when that TDA movement broke out a couple years ago, the Treasury and DC did honor discharges with negotiable instruments. Now, do they still do that? I haven't tried that process in a very long time. I'm working on it, but as you guys can obviously see, I'm on a graveyard shift. It is kind of difficult in terms of managing my time during the day. You may be really tired, especially when the jobs, a lot of these companies are abusing you and you can't really hire a lawyer because many of these companies know, it costs money, to do all of that, by the way. So I just want to kind of give you guys a heads up as far as what's going on there. So in terms of this information, I feel like they should have released the funds already to people who met these requirements already. Paid the seminars. We already signed memorandum of understanding years ago. Says want to go on the SawCon with me, the Hat Cat. Okay, not sure what you mean by that. There. Okay, let's see here. Okay, if I can. Okay, now to get back on the subject. Really quick, I'm going to kind of go over that this information, it appears as though it's being shared with individuals exclusively. What happened to basically, like I said, to reiterate, people who paid for the events, the seminars from years ago, this has been a very long time to, you know, string people along when they should have said from the very beginning, hey, you guys, this is not going to happen until years from now. I don't even know if because the reset hasn't actually officially taken place yet. So this appears to be like a group higher up on the tier system, because I allegedly hear, I don't know how true, but from sources out there said that there's individuals who've been paid already, for those of you all who follow the reset with the currencies and stuff like that. So but in my opinion, as I stated from previous videos, if they were going to do this, wait this long, they should have allowed the prosperity programs packages to pay out for sure. If they claim that they're Christians, that they come off as they're good, honest, loving people, and they really care, it's important, in my opinion, take care of the people that attended your events first. You should have walked them through, held them by their hand. That's why I can tell that when they're doing all of this stuff, like making it difficult where you got to jump through all these hoops and stuff, that's like, in my opinion, it's like they intentionally are trying to not allow only a certain amount to go through, you know, which can be construed as discriminatory practices in a way if this was on a public side. But unfortunately, you can't really go to the police in a way, because if you go to law enforcement, you can, or FBI, they may not understand what you're talking about, because this information is very high up and you have to have a certain amount of knowledge to be able to explain it to them. But I want to tell you, to reiterate for sure, this is not a conspiracy theory, which theory is theoretical. This is factual information I went over. I do have documents, evidence, audios to prove this type of information. And like I said, once again, a lot of this deals with the legal system, but there's a private side to the legal system that supersedes the public sector, that supersedes the statutory side. And these individuals who said they needed a certain amount of people to go into the DTC or 5,000, they came to us. I don't look at it as though we came to them where they said they're doing a benefit. Why, if you don't need us, then why were you constantly, you know, basically saying you need a certain amount or whatever, even if it's only several hundred? But then you're making the processes difficult and then you're saying there's no silver bullet to this information, meaning there's not a step A to Z, but it appears as though certain individuals high up amongst the leadership has the correct information, but was withholding it for a certain number of years. I'm just saying, those who attended the event would know what I'm talking about, or people who followed this information meticulously would understand my frustration, not just myself, because this is not about me, but others who were part of this as well. Just saying, to obviously reiterate, so just giving my way in, you know, you can't expect people to follow you, you know, and then just, you know, keep, you know, misusing them and expect them to be loyal and stay faithful. You know, even you can compare this to a relationship, you know. So I just feel like this is really wrong on their part. Some other information I wanted to go over very briefly. Like I said, to reiterate, I didn't want to be before you guys that long. Keep in mind, this is open discussion. So if you do want to chime in, I'll try to get to the questions as I can. For those, if you all have anything you want to bring up, feel free to jump in. These humanitarian projects, be careful what organizations you decide to donate money to. I want to reiterate that, because they come off as philanthropists, but some of these people, keep in mind, they don't have good intentions. There was a guy out west in California, I believe. He won a lawsuit against Monsanto. By the way, I was surprised. This was public, put in the on the mainstream media. This made national news. I saw it on Yahoo News, which is filtered through the Associated Press. And he won his lawsuit that Monsanto had caused cancer, I guess, from the Roundup that he was using or whatever. And I was really surprised. I was like, wow, you know, this was a big bombshell, you know. So you do have cases where evidence has taken place where these companies have been known to have been doing fraud behind the scenes, or poisoning our water supply, or putting chemicals and stuff in the food, stuff like that, on top of this other stuff. So be careful with organizations, excuse me, you donate to, if you haven't thoroughly researched these corporations and certain individuals behind them that are running them, because they don't have the general public's best interest at heart. So just really keep that in mind. Please do your homework, research, and make sure you thoroughly do your investigation, because the evil cabal, they don't have the general public's best interest at heart. Many of them are in control of the banking system. In my opinion, why I feel like these funds should have been released already, especially to people, as I said, who attended those events, seminars. And it's just ridiculous that this keeps going on when it was decided some years ago. Prosperity packages should have paid out. If, like I said, if they're so good, if they're good people, such good, honest, loving people and caring, think about this. If they're so good and loving, why didn't they allow the prosperity programs to pay out? Doesn't that show? And then all of a sudden they're telling you they want you to send money to crypto accounts, or cryptocurrencies have just came out the blue all of a sudden? No, they're behind that too. Someone told me to look up like information with the Silk Road, how they were, I was watching on the local news here in Michigan some years ago, how the FBI had made all these busts because people were using it for black market purposes. And this is stuff that the elites were getting into years ago with these sex trafficking rings, these tapes and stuff, because back then they had VHS, they didn't have DVDs, and it was even something like prior to that, but they had snuff films. And I heard about this site called the Silk Road that got shut down on the deep web. I didn't even know what the deep web was at one time. A friend of mine had told me, and then he asked me to tell him about it. I ended up finding out what it was anyway, but didn't know that the local news had showed this story when the FBI made all these busts on the deep web. I guess you have to have some type of browser. And then I had a coworker some years ago was telling me about this. It came back to recollection. Then I said, oh, to access this. So this shows these people, in my opinion, from research, have been behind this all this time. Because prior to Bitcoin, you had digital currencies already out prior to that. By the way, just in case you all don't know, it's just that the blockchain technology, the encryption, it's very unique, it's advanced, and they've only mined so many in the world or whatever. But Bitcoin was not invented by Satoshi Nakamoto. Let me say that again. It was not invented by Satoshi Nakamoto. You need to research who started Bitcoin, because from what was told to me, it appears as though the elites are behind that too. You know, because they didn't want you to know, basically connect the pieces. But when you tie it all in together, I even hear it's a particular bank that's not only purchasing precious metals, silver and gold, but even is purchasing cryptocurrencies as well. And then I did some further research, and I won't say the name of this bank yet, but I'll let you guys do your homework. You can get back with me on that. But this same bank I researched some years ago took out a patent to utilize an anonymous currency. Let me say that again. This particular bank, and they're one of the big four, by the way. I'll give you guys a hint. I won't say the name, but I heard they took out a patent some years ago to utilize an anonymous currency. Mighty funny, years later, my anonymous currency, what is used as an anonymous currency? And that platform I just mentioned, dealing with the deep web, that the law enforcement FBI investigated some years ago and shut down Silk Road. I guess that was one of the servers or web hosting platforms on there, or web browser that was private, where people were doing all these underground economy, black market transactions. So you can't convince me that these people that are part of this, that some of them are pretending to be good or humanitarian, has the general public's best interest at heart. So they also, not only, in my opinion, control the internet, the big tech companies, they also are behind not just the banking system as well, by the way, and cryptos. They control that too. So keep that in mind. And they're pretending, another thing that's kind of pissed me off is they keep changing the processes throughout the years in terms of discharging debt, setting off debt. And this is like stealing from people, because your private exemption account is real. For those of us who had the knowledge to be able to access it, they needed to allow us, because I heard years ago it was stated that these transactions used to go through smoothly. They would not bounce back, like you would not get this return code R34 or whatever, that they used to just go through smoothly because your social security number is an account number. You can look it up, go online, look up social security number, the images, old social security cards, and it will say account number. And let me say this, there was some misinformation that was put on there where they say it was not supposed to be used for identification purposes. That's partially true. But here's a clarification on this. This particular bank that I spoke to not too long ago, I asked the teller, and they said when you didn't have your other forms of identification on you, they would use your social security number to help verify who you were. And then there was a guy that I know years ago that said years ago when this stuff was still new, he was in middle school at the time. He's a lot older than I am. He told me the teacher announced to the class that the social security number, when they started issuing them, because some people didn't have them, would be used to identify you in case something happened to you, XYZ. But the older social security card said account number on them. So that is an account. This is not hearsay. This is not a conspiracy theory. Remember, theory is theoretical and conspiracy is when people conspire. This is a fact. You can look up, do your research, but that is true. And there was a former YouTuber out there who had a friend that had worked at the bank, and she checked on the so-called secret account, and the representative stated they needed, the banker had to have a higher access code to access a certain part for her to look this up. But to make a long story short, she was scared, nervous doing it, but she went about it doing it anyway and looked it up for her friend and did discover that it said private account. When she looked it up, the person that gave her her social security number with the corresponding routing number from based on the back of her social security card. And this number is attached to many different accounts because you backed the credit. You were part of the credit of the United States, the currency. You know, there was a congressional meeting some years ago. I have the paperwork somewhere. I have to find it, where they had a meeting and said that the people back the currency. There is truth to that. You are the credit. You have to understand banking, accounting, the double entry bookkeeping side, the assets and liabilities. You know, I'm just keeping it basic, but this thing goes more in depth, and also fractional reserve banking to understand how they monetize and securitize things. And you don't have to have a securities license either. Let me clarify. Now, if you're in the public and you don't understand what you're doing, then they can get you on certain things. But if with information we were learning from the elites and what was shared to me some years ago by a friend of mine, he was a former stockbroker. He had a Series 7, Series 63 license, by the way. But he even shared some things with me. You don't have to have necessarily a broker's or securities license to do certain types of transactions. But for certain things in the public side, they put obstacles or roadblocks in the way where you have to. But there is another level to this as well, where you, in terms of reporting information, just as well as you report information to the IRS. And I want to say, I did give a disclaimer, this is not legal advice. So in the event you need to seek a competent professional, it is encouraged you do so at your own leisure. You are responsible for your own type of transactions yourself. I'm not liable for what you do. I'm just sharing information from my research. I'm giving my opinion and assessment from the experiences that I've gone through and information that I've researched, by the way. So just keep that in mind. So don't go back and say, Dorsey said this or told you to do that. No, I didn't. You know, I'm not responsible for you, and I'm not an attorney. So just keep that in mind, by the way. But I just want to give you guys information that is not discussed by the mainstream media or individuals don't talk about, because this is considered private, a lot of this type of information. However, there needs to be appropriate checks and balances. There needs to be better accountability there, especially for those people who are going through the process dealing with learning this type of information. There should have been better accountability, and that's why myself, I am very displeased by what took place with that particular program. We should have been funded a long time ago. Specifically, we already paid money for the seminars. Vince, we shouldn't have to jump through these, we shouldn't have had to jump through these loops to get accounts set up again, do transactions to a cryptocurrency, which I explained all of a sudden that they're behind that as well. But it's like, what can you do? Because in a sense, if you do, you know, report this to law enforcement or certain government entities, agencies, they might not know what you're talking about. Because keep in mind, they compartmentalize the information where they've only been trained at a certain level. This information is exclusive. When years ago, me and a private team of people, we researched this information and found out it went really high up. It's more to it than just what they call the sovereign citizen movement. They don't want the left hand to know what the right hand is doing. And remember, that's an umbrella term that is used to discredit people that study in the movement. Not saying that you don't have radical people or people, you do have people who are less informed, that just simply don't know. They just got a little bit of information and they're doing stuff, filing paperwork, and they don't understand what they're doing. But there is truth to it. I prefer to call it redemption education. There's a distinct difference. And the State Department, legally, there is no such term or classification as sovereign citizen. From what I understand, you have national, you have U.S. citizen, you have like resident alien or alien or whatnot. So there's no such thing. That's made up. That's an umbrella term. Once again, that's made up to discredit people, to make these people look like they're crazy, or to keep people from looking into this type of information. That's used to steer them away. Like say, oh, no, it's nothing over here. You know, just look the other way. You know, that's what why that is mentioned. And when the mainstream media does cover stories like this, and remember, the mainstream media, many of your local news stations are controlled really high up. They're owned by major corporations. Like Disney owns ABC now. Then you have Time Warner. I think they may have been purchased. Fox was recently purchased. Many of these big super conglomerate news agencies are subsidiaries. Like Scripps Howard controls ABC 7 in different states, or one place in particular, and then they would fall up under Disney because Disney is above ABC. So, you know, it's subsidiaries under them, and you have to look and do the research to find out. Like, for example, Viacom used to own YouTube, but we know YouTube, Google, their parent company is now Alphabet. You know, how long was Alphabet their parent company? I'm not sure. I don't know. But from what I understand, you can look them up on Wikipedia. But we do know there's a connection. Like Google controls YouTube. So keep in mind, and most of your local news agencies and news anchors read from a script. Like they're told what to say. And it's nationwide too. A friend of mine pointed out, somebody had uploaded a video on YouTube to show the evidence how many news agencies around the country in different local cities, municipalities are reading from a script, practically the same lines. And it went from clip to clip to show how they were saying basically the same thing in different cities. So they're not giving their opinion like you're getting a real opinion from me. You're getting a real live person right now. Like I'm not a hologram. This is not a conspiracy right now. This is not a theory, a theoretical. This is conspiracy reality. This is real time. I'm just sharing this to you just to show the difference. So news agencies, news anchors, not saying I like some of the positive stories they report on. I still do watch it from time to time to compare notes and make an assessment. But keep in mind, they're reading from a script. So they're not going to always tell you their opinion or personal opinion or views, or go as in depth in the information as I'm doing and sharing with you guys right now. Another movie, check out Money Masters. You can watch it for free on YouTube. Check out Monopoly Men. It's very important. It's the reason why I keep going over these documentaries. If you haven't watched them yet, I'll go over them time and time again. It will help you connect the pieces and show you how, follow the money trail. And it shows you how this goes real high up, and how the puppet masters, the puppeteers, are pulling the strings from up top. You know, this is high level information. Some of this is not even taught in college universities. I did learn about the Federal Reserve in college. They did talk about the chairman of the Federal Reserve at one time. I won't say his name, but this was brought up in one of my economics class, where I was required to take macro and microeconomics. Like at many college universities, that's a requirement. The curriculum may be different based on the type of school you go to. So just keep that in mind, by the way. So with that being said, there's no questions so far. I want to thank you guys for joining me. Appreciate you. Until next time, if you want to subscribe to me, I am on Facebook at Dorsey's Resource. Of course, obviously, I'm on YouTube. You can also follow me on Twitter at Dorsey's Resource. I'm now on Instagram. I don't have a lot of photos yet. I just got on there. So if you want to follow me on there to kind of see a little bit of the things I'm into, recreational activities, stuff like that, you can follow me at Dorsey's Resource _2019 on Instagram. I'm also on minds.com and gab.ai. Just have a basic profile there. Nothing fancy. Just to let you guys know, that's where you can check me out. Other ways to get at me. So until next time, I want to thank you for joining me. I'm your host, John Dorsey at Dorsey's Resource. Thank you for watching. Take care.